Woohoo! Welcome to the Red Kingdom. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Turns out Shannon's five-star restaurant. They posted this FYI due to the smell and taste of the city of Bloomington water and its effects on our food. Beginning today, they posted this a while ago. They are switching on over to the bottled waters, okay, for their food preparation. Okay, so it's really bad in Bloomington. People have been sending me pictures of the water. So you got a glass. It was a clear glass. Somebody sent me a picture, and it like literally looks like there's like algae in it. It's just so gross. Now, there was a press release from the city of Bloomington, and they said it's safe to drink and use. They say that staff are implementing solutions to improve the water quality and transparency. So like the actual transparency of the water. So it's cloudy. And it honestly looks like there might be algae in it. It kind of looks bubbly if I had to, describe it. It honestly looks like it's carbonated and it's kind of cloudy. But Jeff Jurgens, he says, quote, "We understand that our residents expect and deserve high quality water, and the current taste and odor issues do not meet those expectations." So this is the city manager, Jeff Jurgens. He says, "While our testing shows that the water is safe to drink, we recognize that this situation is unacceptable and we are treating it with urgency. Our team is working aggressively to implement both immediate and long-term solutions. We won't stop until the issue is fully addressed. We will continue to provide regular updates and remain transparent about our progress. We appreciate the community's patience, but we also know they want results, so do we." Okay, so this is good. At least they're, trying to do something. Now, what are exactly they doing? They've implemented, so as of noon on Monday, now this was last week. So last week, they did more filters. Okay, so they put more filters out there and they added, I think it was like 6 to reduce the taste and odor compounds. The staff lowered filter loading rate by bringing in 6 additional filters. Okay, so they have more filtration going on. An emergency permit operating. So this is interesting, this part. Now, this is called a powdered activated carbon feed system. Now, what this is, it's simply treating the water. Okay, so they got an emergency permit application for this temporary pack system. I don't know why temporary. I don't know too much about this. I'm going to be honest with you because I'm not like a water treatment specialist. But from what I was able to gather right before coming onto the show, this powdered activated carbon system is a good thing. Okay, so they stopped doing this in the 2000s, the city of Bloomington, PAC systems. Now, that's like water treatment. Okay, from what I gathered, it's just something that kills algae and microorganisms in the water. So if we're getting it from like a lake, right? This is Lake I think they switched it on over to Lake Evergreen from Lake Bloomington, and that's where the problem was. The taste is different, and obviously the algae in this lake is different, and people are noticing the difference. Now, what this pack system is supposed to do, it's supposed to kill all that stuff that we don't want in our water, right? Now, I guess they got rid of this in the early 2000s, which makes no sense to me. The old pack system, this is what the press release says, was taken offline in the early 2000s to reduce costs. What? So that's where our problem is here, folks. The city of Bloomington decided somewhere, in the 2000s, that this was not a priority, that this PAC system, the old PAC system, was taken offline, or that this wasn't going to be needed in the future, which is just so silly. So they got an emergency permit. I think you have to get the permit through the IPA. Point is, folks, there was a study done like 20 plus years ago, I think decades ago. It was called a regional study, and they wanted to dig wells. Okay, and this would have been a permanent solution. You wouldn't have had to even really use the lakes anymore. And this was a permanent solution. They did that study, and they didn't do anything with the results of that study, and they didn't dig the wells, obviously. So we're dealing with a problem here that was totally preventable. And meanwhile, instead of your city council members looking at this, looking at your water, your basic infrastructure, your public safety. Instead of looking at those concerns, they've been looking at the downtown Bloomington streetscape that is going to cost somewhere between $60 million and $80 million. I still haven't figured out the number on that. Some people say 80 million. And they're more focused on that than your water. Okay, that's where we're at. They've been more focused on projects like that, fun capital projects, rather than your basic infrastructure. So that's an update on the water. I want to talk about Crystal Abel this morning as well. She was posting, and she pretends to love diversity and inclusiveness. I got this from BLN News. A couple of her posts, they're just interesting. If you're pro-life or if you're a Christian, you're not included, okay, in her club. Okay, so you have to remember that going into this election. Time and time again, I think that she has proven that she is unfit to run for public office. Okay, so I got a couple of her posts from BLN News. They were screenshotted, and I was reading them this morning, and I'm shaking my head because it's like, it's odd because she runs as a left of center candidate. So like not too far left. That's the way she presents herself. But you just take a look at a couple of her posts, and yeah, that is very much not the case. She is not a left of center candidate. She is a far, far left candidate. So the real extremists are people who judge people based on the color of their skin. Okay, and that's exactly what DEI policies do. They judge people on the basis of insignificant birth rates or your sexual orientation. Okay, that's what DEI is. Now, Christian nationalist, this term is a made-up term to vilify religious people. And religious people, as Kamala Harris said, have no home in the Democratic Party, okay? Remember, everybody was at the rally and somebody shouted out, "Jesus Christ is Lord," and she said, "You're at the wrong rally." To somebody who said, "Jesus Christ is Lord." Okay, so if you are a Christian, you have no place or no home in the Democrat Party. So when Illinois starts to not get federal funding because they continue these disgusting policies, the DEI policies, and they're beholden to teach this woke, vile, disgusting ideology. And when we stop getting our federal dollars, you have to blame people like Crystal Abel and politicians who uphold these DEI really edicts. So Crystal Abel, she says this on Facebook. She says, the U.S. Department of Education has now created a tip line where people can send tips on teachers and schools who are teaching DEI so that teachers and schools can be investigated for discrimination. Yeah, that's what we should be doing. And I'm going to get to this. It's a Minnesota school. They actually held a field trip for Black or people of students of color only. So they excluded no whites on this field trip. And they were going to take this field trip. That is just straight up discrimination. Okay. And if things are like that are happening in your school district, you need a place to go to report that kind of illegal behavior. And I'll get to where exactly it violates. It's in the Civil Rights Act. It violates a federal law. Okay, that kind of behavior. DEI violates federal law, which is why the U.S. Department of Education has set up that tip line. Okay, Crystal Abel goes on. She goes, let's be clear. This isn't about racism or discrimination. This is about bullying teachers into quitting, scaring students from becoming teachers, and ending public education altogether to create a private school system based in Christian nationalism and funded with your tax dollars. This is so silly. Well, one, that's kind of contradictory. It's not a private school system if it's funded by our tax dollars, okay? It's still a public school if it's funded by the tax dollars, okay? So, number one. Number two, private schools, they already exist. The Department of Education setting up this tip line. Really what they're doing is they're just trying to catch people who are violating federal law. Okay, that's all this tip line is. They're just trying to open up investigations into people who are actively discriminating on the basis of color or sexual orientation. Okay, insignificant birth rates and what you do in the bedroom. Okay, so private schools, number one, they already exist. The Department of Education isn't trying to shut down public schooling. In fact, it's the opposite. They want to ensure public schools aren't, and public school teachers aren't violating federal law. Now, this whole Christian nationalism thing, I don't understand what that is all about. If you're just reporting teachers who are, implementing DEI, teachers who are holding field trips for Black kids only or kids of color only, that's discriminating against an entire race of students. So, if public schools had to compete for students, they would quit being indoctrination camps. So I think we need to do school choice. I think that the U.S. Department of Ed is going to wind up doing something like that. Parents deserve school choice. You shouldn't have to be forced into a failing school district just because you have a certain zip code. You should get to choose where you send your kid to school. I don't know why that is so controversial, right? It's called freedom, and you shouldn't have to be forced to send your kid to a school that you don't want to send them to. If you have school choice, we need school choice. And I think the U.S. Department of Ed is going to try to implement that under the Trump administration. So Crystal Abel, she's always tried to present herself as a left of center candidate. Okay, but she is far left. She is not just left of center, folks. She is far left. And this is proof she couldn't hold it in. So people who she doesn't agree with got the better of her this week, and she posted on Facebook a couple of guys on a sidewalk, saying abortion is murder. They were holding up a sign, and it says abortion is murdered, a couple of men. And don't know who these guys are, but not all heroes wear capes. Okay, so these are a couple of men in Uptown Normal, and this is what Crystal Abel says. Judging pregnant people for what they do with their bodies, they have a right to stand around with a sign. I just wanted to highlight the patriarchy and the theocracy of it all. Oh, man. So, yeah, this is not because normal left of center people or left of center or right of center people, they don't take pictures of people who are just engaging in free speech. Okay. She didn't disagree, or she disagreed with these people. She felt the need to, blast their faces on her social media and say that they were part of a patriarchy, like, and that they judge pregnant people for what they do with their bodies. This is far left extremism. Okay, so she is not a left of center candidate. People who are slightly left of center do not post things like that. I'll be honest with you. I'm a far right. I'm more far right than I would say I'm a moderate or somebody center. This is behavior that I would do. If I saw a leftist, I take pictures of them all the time and post it on my page. What's annoying here is the hypocrisy, right? She tries to present herself as somebody who's left of center, not an extreme leftist, but she is an extreme leftist. So that's this morning. I wanted to get to a couple of local things. So the water and Crystal Abel and her post and, how she's against the Department of Ed creating this tip line where people can send in tips, and teachers or school administrators who are teaching DEI, critical race theory, this idea that you are white and you are inherently evil because of your race and you need some sort of atonement for that. So, you'll uplift students of color over the white kids. That is a racist ideology, okay? That you have to atone for your whiteness, pretty much atone for the sin of being white, which is ridiculous. It's an insignificant birth rate that you can't control, okay? So, she's against that tip line. She also couldn't help it but make fun of these men on her social media. And that is a current county board member. All right. When we come back, there's a few things I want to get to. We're doing some heavy lifting today. Monday is just full of information for you. And I want to get to this Illinois bill. This is out of the State House. They're revising the Secure Choice Savings Program. Okay, so they're revising this. And number one, this is like polishing a turd or putting lipstick on a pig. Okay, this bill. The Secure Choice Savings Program is ridiculous. It shouldn't exist. I'll get to why here in just a couple of minutes, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning. Go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We are going to get to Zelenskyy and the disrespect that Zelenskyy had for not only America, but the really, this is a space, where he should not have been engaging Trump and Vance in such a disrespectful manner right in front of the American public. But Trump, he says, no, JD, I'm glad that he's doing this. I'm glad that he's having this conversation out loud because I think the American people need to see what's really going on here. Now, Zelenskyy is a joke. He is a joke. Here's the bottom line, folks. There are people in Ukraine. Now, I'd say it's about 50-50. Okay. There are people in Ukraine who believe that they should be a state of Russia. Bottom line. Okay. I just saw a video over the weekend where Zelenskyy and his military were going around in the streets and they were driving around, and there was this guy walking this dog, and they grab him and throw him into a van because they are forcing people to serve in the military via draft. And they're going around, they're finding these young men and they're forcing them to fight in the military because they're having a hard time finding men who are willing to serve in a war that they will not win. Okay. These men don't want to fight with Russia. A lot of people in Ukraine believe that they are Russian and that they are a state of Russia. And that is why Zelenskyy does not want to hold an election. Okay. It's because he knows that probably about over half of people, they would prefer to be a part of Russia. Like, honest to God, that is what some Ukrainians believe. Okay. Now, do I like Putin? No, I think that he is a fascist dictator. I think that he is an authoritarian who loves killing people and loves depriving people of their rights. And he's a disgusting dictator as well. However, facts are the facts here. Some Ukrainians believe that they are a state of Russia rather than their own country. Okay, so Ukraine, he doesn't want to hold open elections. That's why Zelenskyy doesn't want to hold open elections, because likely there's going to be a candidate who runs on the platform that Ukraine should be a state of Russia rather than their own separate country. Okay. Because there are going to be, and if you will, the pro-Putin candidate. Okay. I don't want to see that happen. That would suck because, Putin is a dictator as well. But I mean, that's what the political landscape is like over there. There's a lot of people there who just want Russia to be the country, and they would just be a state of the country. Okay. Now, Zelenskyy, he doesn't want that. He wants his own country, and he wants to use America as a negotiating chip against Putin. We've talked about the mineral situation, so what was on the table, and now he is taking the mineral deal after this whole debacle in the Oval Office, which I think is hilarious because Donald Trump is just so cunning when it comes to the deal, the art of the deal. He got this deal. The mineral deal. So what is the mineral deal? Ukraine is rich in minerals. Really, I think that's why Putin wants Ukraine and wants this land so bad, and doesn't want them to be their own country. He wants them to be a part of Russia because he wants the minerals. Minerals like lithium, things for electric vehicles, batteries. There's precious resources there, okay? And that's why I really think Putin wants it. Now, what America did and has done now, they've worked out a deal with Zelenskyy after this whole Oval Office debacle. They've worked out a deal where America is going to purchase these minerals. Now, we're going to get them for cheap because we've already spent $400 billion trying to save their country. So we're kind of entitled to those minerals at this point. There wouldn't be a country if not for America. Okay, so the least they can do is provide us the minerals, number one. Number two, in that they're providing us the minerals and we have this economic interest. Now we have an economic interest in Ukraine. Now, Putin, if he invades Ukraine or further invades Ukraine at this point with this mineral deal on the table, If he further invades, that is a direct attack against America. I don't think Putin will do it once he knows that the minerals are gone and they're in America's hands. He doesn't want Ukraine anymore after that. The whole reason why he's going into Ukraine is for those minerals in those mines. We've talked about this since the beginning of the war. That is exactly why he wants to go in. And we've taken that away from him, through this deal, and we've put an economic interest into Ukraine with that mineral deal. Zelenskyy went out into the media and said that America is trying to steal our country, said all kinds of things and disrespected our country. He wound up taking this deal, by the way, after this whole thing in the Oval Office. But he wanted America to just keep doing what they were doing, which is funding this war. And he wanted to use America as a negotiating chip against Russia. And Donald Trump was not having it. He said, look, I don't want to be a negotiating piece. I don't want to give you an advantage over Putin. I want there to be peace. I want the war to end. Okay, the land that has been taken so far by Putin, rightfully taken. Okay, that's war. It sucks. Okay, a dictator. He has advanced into Ukraine. He's lost men as well, and that's war. And if you've lost men and you've gained this land through war, that's yours. Okay. Now let's all get to the big boys table here and work out a deal with Zelenskyy. So we're going to get to that here in just a little bit. Trump and Vance, they put Zelenskyy right in his place. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 The News and Talk Bloomington Normal. There's a lot of Illinois stories I want to get to. Yes, I am going to talk about the Zelenskyy thing. Zelenskyy tried to disrespect America in the Oval Office. Shortly after disrespecting America in the Oval Office, after, J.D. Vance and Trump put him in his place, shortly after that, he finally comes to the table and does the mineral deal. I'll get into that more in just like about 5-10 minutes. He's for the mineral deal now, and shortly even after the whole fight in the Oval Office, that's what I'm going to call it. It was a fight practically in the Oval Office, which, I'm so glad that we have a country now where there's just not this diplomacy and this bureaucracy, and we have men who are willing to fight for America and for the respect that America deserves. So we've got high testosterone in this Oval Office, and they put him right in his place. And shortly after this fight in the Oval Office, Zelenskyy, there were articles of impeachment. People were willing to impeach Zelenskyy for his behavior. He wants war, man. He does not want peace. He wants war. He wanted to use America as a negotiating chip to advance or to continue to fight Russia. And the Ukrainians are sick of it. He's having a hard time getting military men or young men to be in this war. There was actually a video I watched over the weekend. It was a big van, and they were driving around collecting young men. There was this young man. He was walking his dog. It was like a beagle, and he was walking this dog, and then they rip him. They leave the beagle there for death. Okay, essentially, they ripped him from his owner, or they took the owner, they threw him into the van, this young man, because they have to force people to fight in this war because the Ukrainians, they don't want to fight in the war anymore. They see that it's not a winnable war. They see that this is just not going to happen. They are not going to come out with a win, no matter, even if America were to, continue this funding, it's just not going to work. Now, what Zelenskyy wants, he wants America to fight for Ukraine, and that's just not going to happen. Okay, we want peace. We don't want continued war and more lives lost. We don't want to send our military men over there. That's what would have to happen. We'd have to send our military men over there to fight this war for them. Okay, and we don't want to get into war with Russia. And that's what Trump wants. And I think that if you ask most Americans, yeah, they'd be against sending our military men over to fight this war. So, there was a negotiation that took place. He did sign on to this deal, this mineral deal, which is huge. And I'm excited. We'll get to that. I do want to get to more Illinois things here in the 6 o'clock hour. So let's get to this measure that seeks to adjust the state-sponsored retirement savings program. Let me be clear. This bill is polishing a turd or putting lipstick on a pig. Okay, the Secure Choice program should not exist. I can't believe that they actually did this. It feels unconstitutional. It feels illegal to me that they did this. I'll explain what the program here is in just a second. But now they've made changes to this program. And yes, it is going to make it easier for those enrolled in the program to utilize the program. But now the employers are kind of screwed because they have to enroll their employees in this program, and there's going to be more burdens. They're going to be overburdened with more bureaucracy, and they have to pay penalties if they don't fit certain criteria, the employers. So let me get to it. It's House Bill 1435, and it amends the Secure Choice Savings Program Act, okay? Now, this is a state program, retirement savings, okay? Now, let me be very clear. The asset managers here are BlackRock and State Street Global Advisors. So what does that mean? The asset managers, so I don't do the state program. Obviously, I have my own retirement account, right? And I'm my own asset manager, right? Where, you kind of see where the stocks are at, right? And then you make choices. Oh, well, Apple's doing really well. I'm going to put some stock into Apple, and I'm going to try to grow my assets. Okay. Now, asset managers, they take a cut, okay, when they deal with your money. Okay. So workers at these companies that don't offer a retirement plan are automatically enrolled into the program. Now, workers at companies who don't offer, if the company doesn't offer a retirement program, you yourself can open up a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, and there you still get the federal tax credits and everything. Okay. And you could have done this on your own. Now what the state is doing, they're forcing you essentially into this retirement plan. They automatically enroll you. You have to opt out. And then they start automatically taking a contribution or making contributions to your retirement. And they withhold 5% of your paycheck, and they throw it into this Secure Choice Savings program. Okay. They throw it into that account, your Secure Choice program account. Okay. They take 5% of your the employee's paycheck, and that's where the contribution starts. Now, you can adjust that if you are an employee, but you're automatically enrolled into this thing. So at the end of the day, BlackRock is making a ton of money from Illinoisans who are forced essentially into this program. So State Representative Blaine Wilhauer, who's a Republican, in a committee hearing, he said, we don't need this program at all. Kristen Chang, she's the state treasurer with the state treasurer's office, operates the program. I think she's the executive director of this program. She says, that's an overstatement. We definitely need this program. No, we don't. So they discussed how Illinoisans, look, you can access these federal tax program like credits. And the woman who operates this program said, yeah, you can totally receive federal tax credits because you get tax credits if you have a retirement plan, if you have a retirement savings program, even if that's outside of the Secure Choice program. So you can have retirement, and you don't need the state of Illinois to open up your retirement account for you. Really what you're doing if you enroll in the Secure Choice program, what you're doing is you're benefiting the Pritzker family and BlackRock. Okay, that's what you're doing. This was a thank you. The Secure Choice program was a thank you to BlackRock. BlackRock is one of the largest asset manager firms globally. They partnered with various philanthropic organizations like the Tides Foundation. And light bulbs should be going off when I say Tides Foundation. That's George Soros and Pritzker family-backed organization. BlackRock was a big partner of theirs. Now, the Tides Foundation has received support from Governor J.B. Pritzker's family. So this was a thank you. Hey, thanks so much for partnering with the foundation that we back, BlackRock. We're going to make sure that you are now any kind of money that is grown. Okay, so if BlackRock, they're the asset managers, it's like a mutual fund. If they, invest in stocks and things like that, and they grow your money for you, they take a percentage of that growth. Okay, so this money is all put into a retirement savings program for you, Secure Choice savings account. And BlackRock is in charge of making that money grow. And when they make that money grow, they take a portion of that growth. Okay, so this is a complete scam, and it is all designed to benefit BlackRock, who is a friend of the Governor J.B. Pritzker family, because they donate to that foundation, the Tides Foundation. The Tides Foundation, a philanthropic company. The Tides Foundation, we know, donates to radical left organizations like the Adala Justice Project. The Adala Justice Project, if you go on their Instagram, you'll see kids holding up signs from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which means kids are literal babies, like 5, 6 years old. They're holding up this banner. They're teaching children that they should call for or advocate for the elimination of the Jewish people. Okay, that is what the Tides Foundation backs, the Adala Justice Project and other programs like that, where they are violent on on college campuses, and they try to hurt Jewish students. Okay, that is what we're talking about. And this was a pat on the back to BlackRock. Thank you for partnering with this Tides Foundation that we support, us as a Pritzker family. Now you get to exploit Illinoisans and people who are trying to retire, okay, and we're going to allow you to exploit these Illinoisans who want to retire, and you're going to take a nice fat check, a big cut of their retirement savings. You're charged with making them, you're in charge of making that money grow, but, the growth, you can take a little bit of that, BlackRock, and you are the, that you and State Street Global Advisors, I haven't looked into them, but you guys are the sole benefactors of this program. You guys are pretty much the only people who benefit from this because, like I said, Illinoisans, they can open up their own retirement. Like, we already have a system in place where you can open up your own retirement, and you can have, a bank of your choice be an asset manager. You don't have to be the asset manager yourself. Some people don't understand, the stocks, and I totally get that. You can open up your own Roth or RIA, and that is your individual choice. They've taken choice away from you as an Illinoisan. This is a ridiculous program. I don't even know how it got passed. And it feels unconstitutional to me, but whatever. State Representative Travis Weaver, he asked Christine Chang with the State Treasurer's Office about when an employer would be subject to fines. Okay, so now we're going to get into this on the other side. I know this is heavy lifting today, folks. This is a lot of information, but it's important information. You need to know, if you are an employee and you are enrolled in this Secure Choice program, what this really is all about. You need to know. And as an employer, you need to know, you're going to be subject to fines if you don't fully facilitate a workplace retirement savings option. If you don't fully facilitate this Secure Choice program, if you opt into doing this Secure Choice program. All right, I got to take a quick break, but we're going to talk about the effect that this program has on employers. There is a burden that you as an employer have to face if you opt into the Secure Choice program. And you will be subject to penalties if you don't fully facilitate this program. This is just burdensome for employers. And we don't need that here in this state. We're already seeing business be driven away, small businesses, they are dying in Illinois. And this is just some more icing on the cake here. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, good morning. You're so awesome for being here this morning. Subscribe to the channel. Fee-based asset managers are a scam. You have so much to learn. No, I didn't say that. I said that this is a scam. What this is really all about is BlackRock benefiting. Okay, you as an individual should be in charge of who you decide your asset manager is. This is a complete scam, and that this was all a big thank you note to BlackRock. Like, clearly, this is a big thank you note to BlackRock. Okay, and automatically enrolling somebody in retirement. What if I don't want to save for retirement? Yes, you can opt out as an employee, but I don't want to, say you're an employee and you're not interested in retirement. Okay, that is not a crime. Okay, to not be interested in retirement. And to force somebody or automatically enroll somebody and then they have to go through hoops to opt out, okay, into retirement. This is so evil. You're preying on people who don't have time. and don't want to deal with, government in any kind of way. You're preying on people who, don't have the time to deal with this kind of stuff. And you're just hoping that they are automatically enrolled and they have no idea that they're enrolled in this program. Okay. You talk to people that most likely, I would imagine, now I'm just throwing this out there, probably 6, 7 out of 10 employees aren't even aware that they're enrolled in this program. Okay. They're probably enrolled in this. They're getting paychecks taken out. They're not even really aware that they are enrolled in this program. And guess who's benefiting from all of this? It's BlackRock, because they get a portion of that money growth that when that money is put aside and is growing, and they're in charge of making it grow. I've got nothing against asset managers. I've got something against asset managers who collect a fee. I have no issue with asset managers collecting a fee at all. I have an issue with the state of Illinois, the government preying on people and forcing them into a retirement savings program, automatically enrolling them into a retirement. You can opt out, so you're not forced. But let's be real here. We're talking about people who most likely what this program is for is people who have no interest in retirement, okay, have never really thought about it. And that's okay. Okay, we live in a society and we live in a country where you can choose retirement. If that's what you want for your life and you want to retire, and you don't want to work in your 60s, 70s, that's something that you can choose to do. If you don't want to do that and you want to spend your paycheck and you don't want to put it aside, I think it's stupid, but you can choose to do that. Okay. Now, what the state of Illinois is doing is they are trying to force fiscal responsibility on somebody, and that is not cool. Okay. And let's be real, it's not for the benefit of that person. They're not trying to force fiscal responsibility on somebody because they care about that individual. No, what is really happening is they're forcing fiscal responsibility on this person because they want BlackRock to benefit. Okay, that's really what this is about. They've got no interest in benefiting because now these asset managers, they've got a pool of money, a huge pool of money, because you can look at all these Illinoisans who are in the Secure Choice program. Most of them probably aren't even aware that they're enrolled. Okay, so they've got all this money sitting aside. They're taking 5% out of every single employee's paycheck. Okay, so they've got this pool of money. Now, BlackRock, they can take out loans. They can create they say, we want to open up a new skyscraper in California, and we want to put a bunch of offices there, and we want to fill it with employees. We're going to take out a loan, and they're going to borrow against the Illinoisans' retirement, that money. Okay. So this is benefiting BlackRock to the tune of probably billions and billions and billions of dollars. And I mean, when you look at the connection that BlackRock contributes and is a partner of the Tides Foundation, and the Tides Foundation is solely backed, largely backed, I shouldn't say solely, largely backed by the Pritzker family and Soros, George Soros, these billionaires, you can start to see what this is all about. Okay, this is an evil corporation. So when Governor J.B. Pritzker says more taxes for the rich, he's anti-corporation, and talks about Trump and his billionaire buddies. Look at this. He's a liar. He's doing this himself. Okay, so yeah, this enrages me. I don't even know how this is even legal. But we're gonna get to how this is gonna affect you as an employer. A little bit later, I do want to talk about what are we going to talk about? Prevailing wage in Illinois. A little bit, I don't want to say boring of show. This is really important information, so you got to stay tuned. Poor employees having to look at their employee benefits. It's slavery. Dude, Dan, I mean, I don't know if you're being sarcastic here. These employees, if they wouldn't otherwise enroll in retirement and they're being forced into retirement, that is I mean, you as an employee reserve the right to not retire. Okay. Some people want to work into their 80s and 90s. Some people want access to their money, right then and there, and they don't want to put any of it aside. I wouldn't do that. Like I said, fiscal responsibility is something that I value, but some people don't value it, and that's okay. So Yeah, the state is overreaching here, clearly, but they're overreaching because they want to benefit their buddies at BlackRock. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I know we've got some heavy lifting today. You're just going to want to stick with me because this is really important. We're talking about this BlackRock. They are the asset managers of the Secure Choice Savings Program. This is a retirement savings program. It's state sponsored, and they pretty much force you into this program. You have to opt out. And most people who are probably enrolled in this program have no idea that they're enrolled in this program. But they enroll you in this program, 5% of your paycheck taken out. They pretty much force you to be fiscally responsible. The state is trying to force you to be fiscally responsible, which is just ridiculous. Some people don't want to retire. Some people want to buy those cigarettes, right? Some people want to buy the McDonald's sandwich and they don't want to put any of their money aside, okay? And for those people, I mean, it sucks and I'm sorry, it's probably not the best way to spend your money. You might want to consider a retirement savings, but the state is not responsible. Like, that is not their responsibility in any kind of way. Now, don't think for a second that Illinois or the state-sponsored Secure Choice Program is about benefiting employees, okay? It's not that they want you to be fiscally responsible. That is not their intention here. When you look at the players involved, follow the money. It's the asset manager BlackRock who's benefiting truly from this program. Now, State Representative Stephen Reich, he's a Republican, in the House Personnel Pension Committee hearing, he talks about the proposed changes to the Secure Choice Program. Really what they're going to do is make it portable. So say you're enrolled in the Secure Choice Savings Program, okay? You are going to, maybe you work at Jimmy John's, okay? You work at Jimmy John's for about a few weeks and then you leave and then you go work at McDonald's, okay? Now, if you were enrolled through the Jimmy John's Secure Choice Program, okay, and you were enrolled there, okay, now that Secure Choice Program follows you to McDonald's when you leave, okay? And McDonald's, they're required to, ask you for your Secure Choice Savings Program account and add you to and enroll you through the Secure Choice Savings Program through through them as an employer, okay? And they're required to withhold, paychecks and contribute to the Secure Choice Savings Program. This is complicated because, like I said, a lot of kids are enrolled in this program and they got no idea that they're enrolled in this program. So ultimately, this all falls on the employer, and it's burdensome for employers. So Stephen Reich, he says, say a kid works there 3-4 weeks and says, to hell with it, I'm working too hard and I want to do something else. I'm obliged to give that person the program benefits, and then they go through all this process to enroll, and he signs up, and then he's gone. Okay, so, he only gets maybe like a couple of paychecks, and, a few of his paychecks I had to withhold some dollars from, and then that's a retirement program. And now he's got an account. I'm creating this administrative burden for somebody that isn't going to fully benefit from the program, okay? Because he's gone, he's leaving. In total, maybe he saved maybe $5 or something like that, okay? I'm creating an administrative burden upon myself in my business environment where I have a low margin, and it's just cutting into it for purposes of providing something for which the person is not going to ultimately take full advantage of. Being required to enroll people into this program as an employer when these people are, leaving, or it's a high turnover type situation like a McDonald's, like a Jimmy John's, okay? And you're looking at part-time employees. These are people who won't take full advantage of it, and they don't even really know probably, okay? They're like, oh, you want to enroll in a retirement savings program? They're like, okay, sure, whatever, it's automatic, and they don't opt out of it. Okay, so you have to be active and you have to know that this is a retirement savings program, and that's not going to happen with these kids. They're going to be automatically enrolled, and they're just going to have a few dollars taken out of their paycheck. They're probably not even really going to know. And really, it ultimately falls on the employer who has to legally enroll these employees every single time. So now the McDonald's employer has to figure out, okay, are you enrolled And then they're going to say, I don't really know if I am or not. So then they're going to have to figure out if this employee is enrolled already in the Secure Choice program. And then they're going to have to add them to their, Secure Choice employee roster, essentially, and send that to the state, because they have to inform how many employees they have on this program through their company. It's just a nightmare. Okay, so Christine Chang, she's with the state treasurer's office. In this hearing, she talked about the employer's administrative obligations, and she said, it's one-time registering online on our website, and then you create an online access an account, and then they can use that, and they can upload their information on eligible employees, and if they have people who want to participate, doing payroll deductions. So this is a process, okay? You have to go online. If you're an employer, you have to enroll employees, and you're obligated to enroll eligible employees, okay? If they want to. If they don't express that they want to opt out of the Secure Choice. So you as the employer, it's all on you. It's all on you. And, this is just administrative burden, cost to the employer to implement these kinds of things. And Chang explained, or Chang, she is with the state treasurer's office, operates this program, explained that the state tells employers who have a high turnover rate environment, like a Jimmy John's, McDonald's, whatever, to wait until like 90 days is over to add part-time employees to the portal. And this is what she said. They say, well, how soon after I hire someone do I have to add them? If they're looking at a position for whatever reason that doesn't hold on to people for very long, we often tell those people to wait 90 days for 90 days to pass. And then if the person is still there, think about adding them to the portal. Okay, so this is just a nightmare for employers to try to navigate, for people who aren't interested really in retirement. Okay, these are kids who probably aren't thinking about retirement really, and the state is trying to force them to think about retirement, but it's not for the benefit of the kids. Okay, it's never for the benefit of these individuals who aren't fiscally responsible. It is for the benefit of BlackRock. Don't you forget it. I want to take a break, and we'll be back. I want to talk a little bit about the FOID revocation of this triple homicide-suicide that happened in Bloomington. Turns out ISP, local police, I don't think they did any kind of seizures. Well, I know the ISP didn't. Bloomington didn't get back to me. The Bloomington police, I asked, hey, were there steps taken, seizure steps, confiscation of this FOID card, or confiscation of the guy's weapons? Did any of this take place? Did you try to get a court order to go and confiscate his weapons? They never got back to me. Well, he had the weapon, so I'm assuming that none of that took place. And it's like this. Why have gun control laws if they don't work? Okay, like clearly they're not working. Nobody's enforcing these gun control laws. So why do we keep passing them? I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, go ahead and smash this like button and subscribe to the channel. I so do appreciate you tuning in. Gonna try to get to some of your comments here. Go ahead and smash that like button. Leave NATO, let Europe fight Russia if they want. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we should just really just begin to isolate ourselves here with the whole Zelenskyy Ukraine thing. Ultimately, if America pulls out, Europe is going to have to step in for Ukraine if they want to. Likely they will, and then Europe and Russia can fight it out if we just kind of pull out of NATO and just stay over here by ourselves. Yeah, I'm against it. I think it's dumb. Europe can fight Russia if they want to. America doesn't want to fight Russia. Okay, that's what Donald Trump said. Look, Zelenskyy. Number one, you show up in a crew neck and sweatpants, okay? Even if I was meeting President Joe Biden, who I'm not particularly fond of, okay, I would definitely come in my best dress. I'd come, with the best dress and a very expensive, shoes. I would try to be respectful in a sense that, hey, I'm meeting the president of the United States. If I was asking anything of the president, okay, definitely I would be presenting myself in a respectable manner, but he came in sweats, which is just a joke. Number one. Number two, like I said, people, will say that, oh, it's propaganda to say that, or it's disinformation that some Ukrainians want to be Russians. Most of them are Russian speaking, okay, and there is a that isn't misinformation. Look at what's out there on the table. Zelenskyy does not want to run or doesn't want to hold elections in Ukraine. Why do you think that is? Really? Let's start to use some critical thinking here. Why would Zelenskyy not want to run or want to do elections? Why would he not want a candidate or an opposition? Think about an opponent that he might have. Somebody who is totally anti everything's what Zelenskyy wants, which would be anti-Russia, right? Or anti-war. He's pro-war against Russia. You would most likely get a candidate who would be the complete opposite of Zelenskyy. That's just how the political landscape is over there. There are plenty of people over there who don't want to fight this war. Don't believe me? Look at the many, many videos of people being forced into this van. People don't want the war to go on. They know that it's an unwinnable war. That's why they are clubbing people over the head and throwing them in a van and trying to get them into the military. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Yes, we are doing some heavy lifting today. I do want to talk about the prevailing wage. There's a few things that I want to talk about today. I know it's going to be a lot of information, but the prevailing wage for federally funded construction projects. Okay, so an Illinois state legislator has suggested a proposed amendment to the Prevailing Wage Act could drive up costs. Okay. For taxpayers. Essentially, this is a tax increase, okay, this bill that was recently passed, and it amends the Prevailing Wage Act. What House Bill 1189 does, it says that federally funded construction projects, so that's your bridges, maybe roads, anything that has, federal dollars towards it, that is run by a state or unit of government, the higher of the federal prevailing wage or the state prevailing wage will apply to the project. I'll tell you about the law, what it used to be. If this passes, it'll change a little bit for you in that you're going to see a tax increase, essentially. This is a hidden tax increase. Prevailing wage, this is just kind of silly to begin with. Prevailing wage is like how much you should pay, like it's a minimum wage for construction workers, okay? If they're working on a federally funded or a government funded project, you have to pay them like a base, like, hey, this is the bare minimum that you can pay these construction workers. Okay, if you're a company and you've got the construction workers, this is the bare minimum that you can pay. Now, number one, it's kind of silly because construction companies that aren't willing to pay like above those prices, they're just going to fail. Okay, because there aren't going to be employees in those companies because I don't think that you need really a minimum wage because those companies will just ultimately fail if they're not paying their workers well. So I think that it's kind of dumb to begin with. Prevailing wage is minimum wage essentially for these construction workers. I kind of agree with it, kind of don't. At the end of the day, I really do think that those construction companies that don't pay that prevailing wage or wouldn't pay the right amount of money for construction workers, you're just not going to have construction workers, okay? And then the companies that do pay will be awarded these contracts. All right, I got to take a quick break. We're going to come back, talk about this bill, and then I do want to get to the FOID revocation because this is dealing with Christopher Simmons, this triple homicide, suicide in Bloomington. A gun rights advocate says that the Illinois firearm identification card, the owner's identification card, the FOID card, and the revocation processes and gun control, it really all doesn't work. And this is a clear sign that gun control doesn't work, and Democrat politicians will, scream about gun control, but it's really just to get them more votes and more contributions. I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. Smash that like button, share this out. We are going to be talking about Zelenskyy in this fight that happened in the Oval Office, I promise, in the 7 o'clock hour. I also want to talk about Medicaid because Medicaid was never intended for individuals who are lazy and don't want to get a job. Okay, Medicaid is for people, single moms, for people who are struggling, for people who have worked all their lives and became disabled on the job in some cases. My dad, he's on Medicaid. I'm not against Medicaid. Disabled on the job, his job, totally screwed him over, and it was a dangerous job. So disabled, right? And now is on Medicaid. Medicaid isn't like, I'm not against Medicaid. Republicans aren't against Medicaid. We're against people exploiting it so the people that are on Medicaid can't reap all of the benefits, okay, and reap the benefits that they deserve. So you have people on Medicaid who are lazy, don't want to get a job. They're 29-year-old capable men who want to sit in grandma's basement and play video games all day. Okay, so Medicaid is not for those people. That's fraud, that's abuse. And what Donald Trump is saying, he's repeatedly said that they're not targeting Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare, and that they're not going to get rid of it. Okay, and Governor J.B. Pritzker is out there saying that he is going to get rid of it. That's not true. What they are doing is they are going in and they're going to find the fraud, waste, and abuse, and they're going to make it more efficient. So that way, people who deserve to be on Medicaid, your single mom, who's working as hard as she possibly can at the diner, but isn't making enough money to feed her kids. Okay, so we're going to help her out, and we're going to provide her medical care, free medical care. Okay. Free. Somebody's paying for it. We're paying for it. The taxpayers are going to chip in, and they're going to help Linda try to feed her kids by alleviating that cost and providing some relief through this Medicaid. Now, she also contributes, by the way, to Medicaid. Okay, so she continues to pay taxes. She contributes to Medicaid, and she benefits from Medicaid. Okay, now there's individuals who make too much money and they pay into Medicaid, but they're not benefiting from Medicaid at all. Okay, so that's Medicaid. There's people who contribute to it and benefit from it and who are on it. Then there's people who contribute to it and don't benefit from it. And then there's people who don't contribute to it and benefit from it. And that is not what Medicaid is for. If you're not a contributing member, if you don't have a job, and you can have a job, okay, and if you're not disabled, and you're able to work and you're an able-bodied 29-year-old man, and you've just decided to play video games all day in your basement, Medicaid is not for you, okay? It's called being fair. Okay, so there's an estimated $50 billion in loss every year due to Medicaid fraud. And I don't understand the uproar about finding those abuses, exposing those abuses, and correcting them. I really don't see a problem with that, okay, because it only benefits if you take the 29-year-old off of Medicaid. It only benefits him. He gets out there and he, says, hey, I got to get my life together because I got to pay for my medical bills. Okay. And I got to go get a job because, all my necessary medical treatment. And like I said, it's not a right. Healthcare is not a right. This is something nice we do for Americans. Taxpayers do for Americans who need it and need a little bit of help. Okay, Social Security is also designed for our elderly. This is a way for taxpayers to say thank you to our elders, and it's a way of respecting our elders, and that, hey, you've worked hard, you've worked all your life. Take some Social Security when you're reached Social Security age. Okay, so I think it's like 65. So yeah, I don't know why people would have a problem with, stopping the fraud and abuses within the Medicaid system. It's kind of like the only people who would have a problem with that are people probably exploiting that system. So we're going to get to this because Mike Johnson, he was on CNN and he was on with Caitlin Collins, far lefty. And he, just says, look, Donald Trump is not going after Medicaid, and the Democrats lying and misleading the public about this. It's truly disingenuous. And single mothers should be horrified at the Democrats and the leftists who are pushing out this misinformation, because really at the end of the day, what Trump and this administration is trying to do is help the single mothers, help those who are currently on Medicaid, and get them more benefits by taking the people who don't deserve those benefits off or aren't eligible for those benefits off. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Yes, crime is so bad in one progressive city. Can you guess what one? That a McDonald's is now having to card people to come in, to enter their establishment. It's New York City, by the way. So this McDonald's, they're carding people. You have to be 20 and older. And if you aren't 20 and older, you have to have a parent with you. We're going to get to this because apparently teenagers are going in, they're throwing ice at customers, they're smoking marijuana in the establishment, they're trying to steal food bags from the Uber drivers. So it's just a mess, and it's not McDonald's fault, and this is probably the only way to really correct this, but they're starting to card people at the door. New York, you need to get it together, okay? We are going to get to Trump and Zelenskyy and this fight that happened, I think it was on Friday. I'll get to that here shortly, but first I want to talk about the prevailing wage. This is essentially a tax increase, House Bill 1189, federally constructed projects. So these are your roads, bridges, and that have federal dollars allocated to them, but it's run by the state or a unit of local government. Okay, if there's federal dollars for this project, allocated for this project, but it's run by the state and unit government, local unit of government, the higher of the federal prevailing wage and the state prevailing wage will apply to the project. Now, Sean Stott, he is the Director of Governmental Affairs at the Laborers International Union of North America. He said that the bill ensures Illinois workers protection from action on the federal level in regards to wage setting. Okay, so here's what I truly think this is all about. They think that Donald Trump is going to bring down this prevailing wage, the federal prevailing wage. That's really what I think this is all about, that he's going to bring that wage down a little bit. And we're not talking $15 an hour here, folks. Okay, we're talking people who make $90 an hour. Okay, so here it is. The Illinois prevailing wage rates are set by collective bargaining agreements, and the federal rates are as well. They say that there's a lag time. Okay, and that there could be 2-3 years or 7 years, and before that federal wage kind of also is reflective of the state wage. So the state has a prevailing wage and the federal government has a prevailing wage, what they have to pay construction workers. Okay, it used to be, federal projects. So this is pretty much all of them. Okay, $2,000. Okay, if there's $2,000 of federal dollars allocated towards a project, automatically you go with the federal prevailing wage. Okay, so Sean Stott, he said during a House Labor and Commerce Committee hearing on Wednesday, in terms of enforcement, they must go to the U.S. Department of Labor as opposed to the localized Illinois Department of Labor if they seek redress or compensation that they are due the construction workers. This legislation would address both of these issues, the lag time and having to go to the U.S. Department of Labor if you have an issue with your wages. Look, folks, I mean, this is just so silly. To begin with, I think it's so dumb, prevailing wage. To begin with, it's like, okay, if construction companies are not going to be paying their guys well for these government projects and they're getting all of these government monies and the guys are getting paid, pennies, then most likely these companies aren't going to keep employees. Okay, it'll fix itself in a lot of cases, but whatever. Okay. You've got a minimum wage. The federal minimum wage for government-funded construction projects is governed by what's called Davis-Bacon Act. Our state representative Tom Weber, he voted against the bill's advancement, and he said, "We're talking about a wage for a carpenter, electrician, in this construction project. The prevailing wage, $93 for the Davis-Bacon, so that's the federal prevailing wage, $93 an hour compared to the $90 an hour." Illinois' prevailing wage could be like $93 an hour, and then the Davis-Bacon wage would be $90 an hour. So we're talking like a difference maybe of a couple bucks an hour. And State Representative Tom Weber, he says this seems like a way to nickel and dime more out of the taxpayers, because ultimately who pays for those construction workers is you and I, because that's tax dollars. It's federal government-funded construction project, a road or a bridge or whatever. You and I are paying more because now we have to pay the higher of the wage. It used to just be, if the federal government chipped in $2,000 for this project, we would just go with the federal wage. And here's what this really is all about. Trump is probably going to go in and lower that a little bit to try to save taxpayers money. But yeah, it's kind of dumb. This is what Weber says. We're not talking about $25 an hour jobs. We're talking about jobs that are upwards to $70, $80, $90 an hour wage jobs. Okay. And, if they're getting paid, they're probably getting paid more than the minimum wage, by the way. In most of these cases, they're getting paid more than the prevailing wage at a federal level and a state level. State Representative Jay Hoffman, he's a Democrat. He sponsored the bill. He says that Minnesota, California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, they follow this method where they go with the higher of the wage, either the state wage or the federal rate, whichever is higher. And he said, as you know, the prevailing wage in Illinois is set by a collective bargaining agreement. That agreement is sent to the Illinois Department of Labor, and they will change and update the prevailing wage in a given area for a given trade. Unfortunately, the federal government has not changed the prevailing wage to reflect the most recent collective bargaining agreement. Okay. So really what this is, I bet that Donald Trump might be making some moves to lower it a little bit to save taxpayers money. And like I said, we're not talking about $15 an hour jobs. Okay. This is $90 an hour, $93 an hour. And most companies will pay more than that. Okay. State Representative Will Davis also said, hey, if more money is being paid out in wages, would that result in federally funded construction projects not being completed? Yeah, so you run into this possibility of, the construction project winding up being more because you have to pay the prevailing wage, the higher of the prevailing wage. And then you're like, oh man, the construction project is more than we had thought, guys. Are we going to have to put this off? Well, Sean Stott, the guy with the laborers union, the laborers, what is it? International something governmental affairs. The guy pushing this bill, the lobbyist, he is saying that labor costs are typically in a construction project represent a small fraction. He's right about that. Materials are going to be overwhelmingly the biggest driver of the cost of this project. On the labor side of things, I don't think it's going to move the needle much, but it will move the needle. So, this is just so annoying because Illinois could set the prevailing wage at an astronomical number. And most likely what's going to wind up happening is the federal government isn't going to fund construction projects. And this is a possibility where the federal government is just like, look, you've set your prevailing wage at $1,000 an hour. Okay, this is I'm using big numbers, and I'm exaggerating a bit. You've set your prevailing wage at $1,000 an hour. We're not getting the most bang for our buck here in the state of Illinois, because all of our dollars that we've contributed to this government-funded project, all of our dollars are going to pay the employees and not the actual project itself. So we're going to stop sending money to Illinois because you guys have, keep setting your prevailing wage higher and higher and higher. And they're taking advantage of this law that says that you have to go with the higher of the prevailing wage, federal. So that $2,000 threshold thing was put there for a reason. If you're kicking in $2,000 for something, you want the most bang for your buck. You don't want it all to go to labor. You want the project to actually get done, and you don't want it to just be for the labor. Okay, so that was a way for the federal government to ensure, hey, if we're paying for this thing, you have to pay them what we want. Okay, if we're paying over $2,000 for this construction project, you have to pay them the wage, the federal prevailing wage, because we're not going to kick in any more than we have to. Like, we want the most bang for our buck. Okay, so that's House Bill 1189. I know that's in the weeds, but this is very important because what you need to know is that this is a secret tax increase. They'll try to, oh, well, we just want to pay our construction workers. Really what this is, it's sneaking a small tax increase on you to pay these union guys. Okay, so I want to talk about the FOID revocation process and how it's bogus and it doesn't work and gun controls don't work. Okay, so a triple homicide-suicide in Bloomington, totally tragic, so sad. The Bloomington Police Department, they released this press release, and they said that the firearm used in the homicide recovered at the scene under the body of Christopher Simmons was legally purchased in 2021. In 2022, Simmons' FOID was revoked and he was prohibited from legally possessing firearms. So this FOID revocation process didn't work in this case. Okay, so there was a process that the government is supposed to do with the FOID revocation process, and they didn't do it. Okay, at the Illinois State Police level, they didn't go in, they didn't confiscate or seize, and the local level, they didn't go confiscate or seize the weapons. Executive Director at Guns Save Life, John Bach, he said that Simmons should have never had guns. Yes, in this case, couple of officers could have knocked on the door and asked about his gun. That might have gotten the gun that he used in the crime out of his possession. Okay, that would have happened, but the local police didn't do that, and the state police didn't do that in this case. Okay, so he had this gun that he legally purchased. He was illegal, like he was in illegal possession of this after 2022. Okay, now this triple homicide-suicide happened in 2025. So from 2022 to 2025, that's 3 years where this guy had this gun, and nobody tried to take it away from him after the FOID revocation. The Illinois State Police confirmed that Simmons did not submit what's called a firearm disposition record to the ISP after revoking his FOID card. ISP said that the notification of Simmons' revocation was sent and included in the law enforcement portal, and local law enforcement agencies can use that for enforcement purposes. So they notified local law enforcement that he didn't submit this form. What the form is, the firearm disposition record, what it essentially says is, hey, all my firearms, I transferred them to my dad who has a legal FOID card, or I surrendered my weapons to the local police. That's what the firearm disposition record is. It says, what did you do with the guns that you had before we revoked your FOID card? That's essentially what this record is. So I asked the Bloomington police about confiscation and seizure actions that were taken. They did not respond. Okay, so it's been several days. They haven't responded. I doubt that they took any seizure actions and confiscation actions because the gun was there and he used the gun. Okay, so Bach suggested that the General Assembly allocate public funds to assist local departments for these seizures. If we're going to have this law, the FOID revocation law, which I think is a dumb law to begin with, you have to make sure local departments have the capacity to enforce that law. And to enforce the revocation process. Okay, so after a FOID card has been revoked, how do you go about the seizures and confiscation? Okay, obviously the local police department is going to have to do that, and that's tricky because taking somebody's guns away, especially violent individuals, that can be tricky because you'd have to probably call in like SWAT essentially, or like you'd have to like get an armored truck and get a lot of guys in there because you're entering a potentially dangerous situation. So Bach says this, everybody's pointing fingers at everybody else. Okay, so the ISP said, oh, we notified local law enforcement and they didn't do anything. I don't believe, because obviously he had the gun and he committed the crime. And the gun was still in his possession. But it's tricky because even if you go in and you confiscate these guns, like what if he has like a trap like door or something and like, or goes and buries it in the backyard? Like, how are you even, if you do the confiscation in the, like, say you don't run into the problem of a shootout, okay, or you're coming to take this guy's guns, he's going to try to shoot you. You don't run into that problem. This guy could hide the gun and you might not find it in the seizure, okay, or the confiscation. I don't think any actions were taken by Bloomington police. I'll just be honest with you. They didn't respond to me. I don't know. But everybody's pointing fingers at everybody else. Where's the buck stop? John Bach, he says, my opinion, the buck stops with the state police. They are the ultimate senior law enforcement agency in the state. They're the ones who start the FOID revocation process. They should be the ones to, assist in the seizures and confiscations if we're going to do that here in the state. Unless the General Assembly offers more money for local law enforcement to have the ability to carry these things out, the officers to go out, when they're strapped for funds, especially in these smaller towns, we're going to get these people like Christopher Simmons who fall through the cracks, and they're going to do really horrific things. Okay, if we don't prioritize local law enforcement, actually. And this is all I'm advocating from the position of gun control and that this law is right. Point is, it's not right. It's not feasible. It's impossible to enforce a lot of these gun control laws that are on the books and the FOID revocation process, because it's just not possible to do it. The Illinois State Police, they confirmed that they attempted to seize Simmons' firearms, or did not attempt to seize Simmons' firearms. They didn't do that after he didn't submit the firearm disposition record. They just notified local law enforcement, and from there, local law enforcement can conduct some sort of seizure action. They'd have to get a court order. Now, here's the interesting part about all of this. Well, we know the 3 people died, including a 13-year-old boy, District 87. They were all shot, so sad, and then he shot himself. Christopher Simmons, he pled guilty to a misdemeanor crime in 2023, a misdemeanor gun crime. Okay, so in 2022, had his FOID revoked, pled guilty to this misdemeanor gun crime in 2023. He was also charged with unlawful possession of cannabis by a driver in 2023 as well. He has a pretty long record. In 2009, he had a cannabis charge as well. I think he had more than some grams on him in 2009. Now that was when that was when marijuana was illegal. So he had a lot of grams of marijuana on him, and he wasn't supposed to at that time because it wasn't legal. But John Bach, he says, this is a failure of Governor J.B. Pritzker's state police. This is also a failure of the local police. In this instance, to follow up on the notification that they got that this guy was convicted in 2023. He's purchased guns, okay, and somebody needs to go check him out since he didn't file his firearms disposition report. Okay, so Simmons, he was released in 2023 on conditional discharge for 18 months in September. So this is where it gets interesting because I'm assuming conditional discharge, essentially that means like probation. So I'm assuming he had some sort of probation officer. Okay, so unlike law enforcement, probation officers, they don't need a court order. Like I said, it's kind of tricky for local police to conduct some sort of seizure or confiscation actions and to do this kind of thing. It's not that tricky for a probation officer, okay, because you're a probation officer. You don't need a court order. You know, it's kind of your job to make sure that they are following the conditions of their release. So, you know, do they have drugs? Do they have weapons? That's all in violation of your conditional release, okay? And I'd imagine part of his conditional release for a gun charge, he wasn't allowed to have guns, okay? So Simmons, he was actually supposed to appear in court this March, like March 25th, and this is the end of his probation, okay, his conditional discharge, that was the end of it. So Bach said this, if anybody, you know, on probation or parole, their respective agents or parole agents or probation agents can search their homes without a warrant at any time. That's part of the agreement for these people to be out of custody. Okay, that's part of the conditional release. So if that didn't happen, there's so many like people who could have checked out this guy to see if he had guns still, and they didn't. Why? Because it's dumb, and it's really hard to enforce gun control laws because it's unconstitutional. But John Bakke explained local law enforcement, upon the notification of his failure to submit the firearm disposition record, could have contacted the probation officer. So they didn't even really need a court order, the law enforcement. The local Bloomington police didn't need a court order if this guy had a probation officer to conduct that search. I'm assuming he did because he was on conditional release for 18 months. And that was September of 2023. And he was, you know, this month, he was supposed to have some sort of court hearing after his probation was over. So, yeah, I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Yeah, like I said, FOID Card is unconstitutional. I'm arguing from the position of what we have on the books already, Chris. I totally agree with you. FOID is unconstitutional. Taking away guns is unconstitutional. Seizures, confiscation, all of that, totally unconstitutional. Even if this guy, had all of these gun charges and was a danger to society and himself and others. I don't believe in the gun confiscation thing. I really don't. If he's a danger to himself and others, we need to lock him up. Okay, taking away his guns isn't really going to do much because he'll just go out and get more if he wants to do harm to himself and others. He's just going. We need to lock him up. I would say in a mental institution. It sounded like this guy was addicted. I don't know what his toxicology report came back as yet. They were supposed to do one. I didn't see the results of that yet, but I'm assuming he was addicted. I mean, if you look at his sentencing, he had a lot of cannabis charges. I bet he was doing more drugs than that. I don't know, but that's just kind of what I've seen. You know, people with addiction to cannabis, they do go to harder drugs. When people say it's not a gateway drug, they're ridiculous, and don't listen to those people because science has proven that it is a gateway drug and that people look for harder crap. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't agree with the gun laws. I think that they're stupid. And this is proof that it's stupid because the FOID revocation process didn't work and it never does. Okay, these people always fall through the cracks. Why? Because it's impossible to enforce gun control laws. Why? Because it's unconstitutional. Okay. It's unconstitutional, and the cops don't want to enforce it because it's unconstitutional. They take an oath. And, you know, it's kind of interesting because you go to confiscate these guns, people are going to shoot you. Okay, you go to conduct these seizures. There's no way that you don't wind up dead. Okay, especially if this guy is violent and has a violent record or an addiction record. In this guy's case, he probably was a pretty violent individual. He had a gun charge, got misdemeanor charge. So I would imagine not the best kind of person in society. And really, what this law does, it ultimately screws the 86-year-old guy who didn't renew his FOID card license. Okay, that's what this law it winds up screws. It winds up screwing law-abiding citizens more than it winds up helping any kind of situation where you take the guns away from criminals. Okay, so what winds up happening, the law-abiding citizen, he's going to file his FOID deposition or his firearm disposition form, and then if he files that firearm disposition form, most likely that's going to tip off local police to go to his house, and they're going to take the guns, or if he hasn't surrendered them or transferred them, and they're going to make sure that he surrendered or transferred them. So these law-abiding citizens, they're the ones getting screwed with this FOID revocation law and this FOID revocation process. And like I said, they're not obligated. Local law enforcement and the Illinois State Police aren't obligated to conduct these seizures. In the law, it's kind of funny. They say can. So in the law, it says local law enforcement can conduct a seizure, or they can obtain a court order to conduct a seizure. And it's interesting because it's like these gun control laws. I know some politicians somewhere passed this bill, FOID revocation, right? And the process, FOID firearm disposition form, some lawmaker somewhere, some Democrat lawmaker passed this, and they took it back to their constituents and said, look, this is going to cut down gun crime. This is going to keep our community safe. Donate to me because I am, and moms demand action. They donate to this campaign, to this politician, and it's completely toothless, and it's just this repeated cycle over and over again of politicians making promises that will never that'll never have any results. They're broken promises. You can't promise that gun crime is going to go down. We're going to be right back. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk blooming to normal. Yes, I promised that we were going to get to the Zelenskyy, Donald Trump, JD Vance fight that happened in the Oval on Friday. Yes, Zelenskyy should be doing everything he can to stop his men from dying. But rather than doing that, he decided to pull off this little stunt in front of the American media and mock the Trump administration for trying to end the war. So I've got the clip here. I'm sure you've already seen it. It's exploded on social media. Everybody's probably seen this at this point, but take a listen here.
About the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are
Mr.
not
President,
strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You
God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
what
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very
You will
good.
feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very
You
strong.
will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the very
bad position,
beginning
and he
of the
happens
war.
to be right
From
about
the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a
Brown,
good position.
I
You don't
was
have
in
the cards right now. With us, you start
I'm
having
not playing
cards. But
cards.
right now, you
I'm
don't. Yeah,
very
you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War
What do you-
III.
what do you
You're
think about?
gambling with
What do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And
You-
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
I'm
It's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
I'm wearing
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot
Entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
you said thank
Even
you.
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for
What-
the United
what
States
you're
of
speaking
America
about.
and the president who's trying to save your country.
Yeah. So Vance handled that very, very well. Zelenskyy had some nerve trying to, bring people to America in on this propaganda. That's what Zelenskyy was doing. He was trying to bring the people of America in on this propaganda, and he disrespected the United States in its cherished Oval Office. That's what Zelenskyy did here. Ask yourself this question, really, just ask it to yourself. Why in the world would be Zelenskyy vehemently against holding elections in Ukraine? Ask yourself that question. It's because his people do not want to fight this war. The Ukrainians, some Ukrainians, I'm not going to say all, but it's getting close to the majority of Ukrainians at this point. They think that they should just be a state of Russia. There are Russian-speaking Ukrainians, and some people just say, hey, we should just be a state of Russia and not our own country. And they're most likely his opponent, if he were to be running in an election, his opponent would run on that, and he'd run on anti-war, being friends with Russia, rather, working out some sort of economic deal where they get the minerals, where Russia, purchases the minerals, and Ukraine can be a prosperous nation by working with Russia rather than fighting with Russia. So, yeah, that is why Zelenskyy is vehemently against holding elections. He wants America to fight his war and to fight for Ukraine to be their own country and to not work with Russia. And Zelenskyy, so this has actually worked out after the Oval Office debacle, after this fight broke out, the mineral deal. The reason why Putin wants to go in, and we've known this from the beginning, is because Ukraine has minerals that Putin wants. And Putin is going to probably stop if America works out this economic deal. And we've worked it out because Zelenskyy now, after this whole fight happened, he came out and he said, okay, I'm for the mineral deal now. Although he's, in the media all last week saying how America shouldn't be taking the minerals. America, we want the minerals because we want an economic interest in Ukraine. And if we have that economic interest in Ukraine, Putin's going to back off. One, we take away what he wants from the country in the first place. So he has no reason to invade. And if he invades, then he's invading, essentially an American ally, because what that mineral deal is, it's an ally of the United States now. We're making Ukraine an ally, which is a great deal for them. But Zelenskyy was fighting that because he wants not the mineral deal. He wants American dollars and American soldiers to come fight for him. His men, I watched this video, like I said, this weekend, where this guy was walking his dog. It was a little beagle, cute little dog. And this guy was grabbed by his arms and legs and thrown into a van to go fight in this Ukrainian war. People are vehemently against the war in Ukraine. The Ukrainian people don't want this. They see how unwinnable it is. Okay, so Zelenskyy, he had some nerve trying to go in there and try to bring the American people this pathetic propaganda and disrespect us and President Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they weren't having it. They will always stand for America, and those who respect our position in the world. Okay, he's not going to stand with people who don't respect our position in the world and respect the fact that America is probably prevented, to the tune of $400 billion, prevented his country from total collapse. The only reason why he's got a country is because of America. So, yeah, Trump said that the war would have ended in days had not America been funding this. And the fact that Zelenskyy implies that he's not for a ceasefire here in this interview is mind-boggling to me. Like, the level of arrogance, and he's gambling with the lives of innocent people. He's a dictator. He doesn't want to hold elections, and he's got it in his head that Ukraine is his. Okay, and to a point where he doesn't want to see fire, and he doesn't want to work with anybody. He doesn't want to be an ally with the United States with this mineral deal. Now he is, because he faced impeachment over the weekend because of this. So Trump, in his statement here, we had a very meaningful meeting at the White House today. Much was learned that could be understood without conversation under fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion. And I've determined that President Zelenskyy is not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels that our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. And I don't want advantage. I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America and its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he's ready for peace. Trump is correct. Zelenskyy, he does not have the cards to act like that. And it's insane that he would ever uplift his ego while gambling with the lives of millions of people. That's what he's doing. He's uplifting his ego. He thinks that he can, Ukraine is his, and he can gamble with the lives of the millions of people there, and potentially cause World War III. Because what's going to wind up, what he wants is America to fight with Russia. That's what he wants. He wants our men over there fighting his war, and for Ukraine to be his. Okay, and he doesn't want elections. He wants to be the forever dictator of Ukraine. Okay, and that is going to lead us into America getting into war with Russia. Are you kidding me? They would lead into World War III, because China will get involved, and they won't be on our side. Okay, so the last administration funded this war, and so much so, I mean, I can't believe that it even went on that long. $400 billion. I didn't know it was that much. That was the number that, Trump, I think he said 300 billion something, but I think it's closer to 400 billion is the number that I saw. It's refreshing to see Vance and Trump put Zelenskyy in his place. Okay, after this administration, the previous administration, it is so refreshing to see this happen. It's unclear what Zelenskyy's motive really was with this meeting. But like I said, I think that he's a dictator. I think that he wants Ukraine for himself. I think that he doesn't want to ever hold elections, and he wants to duke it out with Putin because he has a vendetta against Putin. And I don't like Putin, folks. I don't want to be called a Putin sympathizer, whatever. He is an authoritarian dictator, okay? But America stepped in. They said, hey, here's how we get Putin off of your back. we have an economic interest in you. We take the minerals. We purchase the minerals from you. That's our economic interest. Russia should back off because, number one, we take away what they want, which is those minerals, and it's America's. So Russia's not, they are not going to engage in a war with America because they understand that they won't win that war because we're awesome. Number one. Number two, America doesn't want to go into war with Russia because we don't want to lose men. Okay. We don't want to throw our guys over there if we don't have to. Okay. So, as Trump said, Zelenskyy can come back when he's ready for peace. Now, from what I understand, he has at this point said that he wants to do the mineral deal, which is huge. And I think that that is just going to end the war because Putin is not going to want Ukraine because he just wants the minerals there. Okay, that's what this war was about from the beginning. It's those minerals like the lithium and the mining and things like that, those precious resources, and that's what Putin wanted because it's all about energy. With Putin, he understands the money. The gas, he's the world's gas station, oil. He's all about that. So he wanted the minerals. We take that away from him. He's going to leave Ukraine alone. Now, he's fought for the land that he's obtained already, okay, through war. Okay, so Putin has made advances into Ukraine and has gotten land. It's only right in those negotiations. He's lost men. This is the reality of war. You've lost men and you gained, advanced in that country and you've gained land. That shouldn't go back to Ukraine. Okay, it's only right that Putin keeps that in that. That's the way war goes. Okay, so that he gets screwed a little bit, but Zelenskyy and the Ukraine get screwed a little bit, but that's just the results of war. Okay, so I got to take a quick break. We're going to talk about Mike Johnson talking about Medicaid reform. Yes, Medicaid is not for 29-year-old dudes who are fully capable to play in their mom's basement video games. Okay, that's not what Medicaid is for. I'm going to be right back. That too. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not privy to the negotiations. But the Black Sea, Putin wants access to the ports in the Black Sea since he took over Crimea. That could be it. So I don't know. I'm not privy to that. Maybe that's part of the deal is, hey, Putin, you can't come in to Ukraine anymore. I know you want access to these ports. You've already gained access to some of the country here, but you're not gaining access to these Black Sea ports. I don't know what the negotiations are, like the refined details of the negotiations are, but I know this mineral deal is going to be good for Ukraine. This mineral deal, it makes us an invested partner of Ukraine, and Putin is going to see that, and he's going to back off. Why? Because it's freaking America. Okay, bald eagle screech, America. Okay, so Putin is not going to mess with Ukraine anymore after this mineral deal. I guarantee you, because he's going to see that is actually invading America. Right now, he's getting away with this because nobody's invested in Ukraine as of right now. They're not even a country of NATO. They're not in NATO, so there is nothing like making Ukraine a partner of European nations, therefore a partner of the United States. This mineral deal makes them a partner of the United States, and it tells Russia, hey, you better back off because they're our friend now. We have an economic interest in Ukraine. So, yeah, I think that the mineral deal is a big deal. And I think that that's going to probably scare Putin off a little bit. Like I said, authoritarian dictator. I don't know. Dictators are kind of unpredictable. Maybe he invades Ukraine when another feckless Democrat gets into office. And, removes this deal or takes, lets Ukraine have the mineral deal or lets Ukraine have all the minerals and stops buying those minerals for domestic use, which is likely what will happen. So the green weenies will get in and they'll be like, oh, we can't do that. And it's not green or whatever the heck they're going to say. But most likely, Putin will advance again if that deal is terminated, and a Democrat will likely terminate it. Why? Because they're all pro-war and they want a war to break out over there, because they all get rich off of war. Okay, we know war makes a lot of money for a lot of politicians. Mineral deal for us. That's the peace deal. Yeah, I kind of like that. And restore the pipeline Biden killed. Yeah. So that way we don't have to rely on Russia for our oil. That's a big thing about the green weenie thing. I've always talked about that, where the European nations, they have transitioned or want to transition to this green energy, and that is not a reliable source of energy. So ultimately, the only people who are in that energy space or the reliable energy space are Russian, is the country of Russia and Putin. So that's the country's gas station where everybody's getting their energy, and that's emboldening and empowering Russia. And we need to put an end to that, opening up that pipeline. We need our fossil fuels, so we don't have to rely on Russia. I like this idea, giving the rest of Ukraine back to Russia, because remember, folks, I don't know if you guys saw the Tucker Carlson interview. I highly recommend you go check it out with Putin. It's very complicated, but there is a history there. Soviet Union, Ukraine, it all used to be one. Okay, Ukraine wasn't its own country always. Okay, and Russia, and truly Putin believes that Ukraine is Russia's. He believes that this separation should have never happened. And, perhaps making a land deal where you give him the rest of Ukraine, and he's, happy with that. And we take all the good stuff like the Black Sea, that strip of land with the ports, and then the minerals where the minerals are at. We take all of that, and we become an economic partner of Ukraine. Then I think that will scare off Putin, and he'll be satisfied with having a majority of Ukraine back into the Russian country. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that probably the smartest thing I've ever seen. Everybody kind of wins. Putin doesn't get his minerals and his, Black Sea ports, but he gets a lot of Ukraine back. So, yeah, honestly, if you look at this deal so far of what we've got on the table, he's kind of getting shafted, Putin, in these negotiations, if you really look at what's on the table, because all he gets is the land that he's advanced on. He's not getting the full Ukraine, or like the majority of Ukraine back into Russia. Hey, if you're listening and you're eating Fritos in your mom's basement and you're playing video games and you're an able-bodied 29-year-old male, what the hell is wrong with you? Get off Medicaid. You're abusing it, and there are people who need Medicaid. The only people who have a problem stopping Medicaid abuses are the people who are likely taking advantage of that system. Okay, so while most people understand that Medicaid is for people struggling, those are for your single parents, your single moms who are trying to make ends meet. Those are for your men who have worked all their lives and became disabled on the job, became disabled in their later years, or even, earlier, say like you're 30 years old and you became disabled on the job. Medicaid is for you. Okay. Not for the 29-year-old eating Fritos out of a bag and playing video games. Okay, and you're an able-bodied male, go work. Okay, you're not contributing to the system. The single parents who are on Medicaid and they're working and they're trying to make ends meet, they're contributing to that and they're benefiting from that. Now, there's people who don't benefit from Medicaid and they contribute to that system. So although people work hard to pay for their medical costs and their premiums, the same cannot be said about everyone. Okay, so I want to play, this is Speaker Mike Johnson. Now, he was on with Caitlin Collins, CNN, and he was talking about the abuses of the Medicaid system. Donald Trump is not going to take away Medicaid, Social Security. Okay, what he's trying to do is ensure that people who are benefiting from these programs are benefiting to the fullest, and there aren't people who are lazy, not wanting to get a job, and are benefiting from a system that they're not contributing to. So take a listen.
I challenge you or anybody on your staff, do a word search for Medicaid on the resolution that we passed last night. You will not find it. That is not part of this equation, okay? We're talking about finding efficiencies in every program, but not cutting benefits for people who rightly deserve that. Work requirements for Medicaid. That is something that is public opinion polls almost 90%. You don't want able-bodied workers on a program that is intended, for example, for single mothers with 2 small children who's just trying to make it. That's what Medicaid is for, not for 29-year-old males sitting on their couches playing video games. We're going to find those guys and we're going to send them back to work. That's what everybody supports. That's what the Republicans are for. And by the way, we find dignity in our work. That's going to be good for everybody.
I love it. I love it. Yes, it's unfair that parents have to work extremely hard and they struggle to try to cover the expenses of medical costs. Meanwhile, you have these couch potatoes and they just benefit from the system without contributing to it and having never contributed to it. Okay, disabled people got hurt on the job, right? And they get Medicaid. The Medicaid or healthcare, like I said, is not a right. This is something nice that the taxpayers do for our elderly, for our disabled, and for people who are having a tough go. Okay, this is not a right. Okay, number one. So even if Donald Trump wanted to take away Medicaid, which is not happening, even if he were to take it away tomorrow, it's not like this great sin. Okay, it's not like he's operating unconstitutionally or like he's operating like a dictator. This is a benefit. This is a privilege because the taxpayers voted for people to set up this system, and people don't mind contributing to these systems. Most people don't mind contributing to these systems, but we do start to care when you have a situation where you're paying into a system and you're providing benefits to somebody who never pays into the system. And for them, no benefits, like no couch potato benefits. Okay. The Trump administration has repeatedly said they have no intention of dismantling Social Security or Medicaid or Medicare. However, that doesn't stop the left and Governor J.B. Pritzker from misleading the public. Okay, because they're out there with their disinformation. According to CNN, quote, the White House has made a commitment, the president said over and over, we're not going to touch Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. We've made the same commitment. Now that said, we are going to look into these programs and we're going to carve out the fraud, the waste, abuses, and find the inefficiencies. Okay, so they have made this commitment to not target or dismantle Social Security, Medicare, Medicare. Okay, they're just simply making the system more efficient, so that way single mom on Medicaid can benefit more. Okay, and when you take all the fraud and abuse out, then you can benefit even more from this program. So according to Johnson, an estimated $50 billion a year, every single year in Medicaid due to fraud and fraud alone, just fraud, where people who are ineligible for Medicaid, because there's certain eligibility requirements for Medicaid, there's just people who are ineligible for Medicaid and they're collecting the benefits. So there's no reason why the government should not do everything in its power to ensure hardworking Americans who are struggling to make ends meet benefit from this and not, the couch potatoes. So take a listen to this. Here we go.
There's about $50 billion estimated that are lost every year in Medicaid, just in fraud alone. No one's for that. We've got to make sure we eliminate it. We have the algorithms now to do that. We have advanced technology to find it. We need efficiencies. Couple of examples. There's about.
Okay. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat. We'll be right back. you. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Well, that's going to do it for our show, folks. I so do appreciate you tuning in. Before we took a break, I was telling you a little bit about Democrats misleading the public. Single mothers should be horrified that they, are being fed this lie that they are going to be losing their benefits, because that is so far from the truth. What really is going to happen, they're going to benefit more, because we're going to get the waste and the fraud out of the Medicaid system. Where the 29-year-old male who is able-bodied and can go to work, we're going to send those people back to work. Okay, so it's no surprise that they would fearmonger, though, because that's the Democrats. That's just the way they go. Governor J.B. Pritzker has been trying to gaslight the masses into believing that Donald Trump is going to take your Medicaid away. That's just not true. They try to make themselves relevant. Governor J.B. Pritzker is trying to really make himself relevant right now, because he's running in 2028, likely. I think he is. And he's trying to make himself relevant by throwing out these lies and trying to deceive the masses against President Donald Trump. He's trying to make himself relevant. That's all this is. All right, you guys have a blessed day. I so do appreciate it. You guys, I'll be back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Talk to you soon.